Heaven, or the heavens, is a common religious, cosmological, or transcendent supernatural place where beings such as gods, angels, spirits, saints, or venerated ancestors are said to originate, be enthroned, or live. According to the beliefs of some religions, heavenly beings can descend to earth or incarnate, and earthly beings can ascend to heaven in the afterlife, or in exceptional cases enter heaven alive. Heaven is often described as a highest place, the holiest place, a paradise, in contrast to hell or the underworld, or the low places, and universally or conditionally accessible by earthly beings according to various standards of divinity, goodness, piety, faith, or other virtues or right beliefs, or simply divine will. Some believe in the possibility of a heaven on earth in a world to come. Another belief is in an axis mundi, or world tree, which connects the heavens, the terrestrial world, and the underworld. In Indian religions, heaven is considered as Svakaloka, and the soul is again subjected to rebirth in different living forms according to its karma. Any place of existence, either of humans, souls, or deities, outside the tangible world, heaven, hell, or other, is referred to as the underworld. The ancient Mesopotamians regarded the sky as a series of domes, usually 3, but sometimes 7, covering the flat earth. Each dome was made of a different kind of precious stone. In ancient Near Eastern cultures in general, and in Mesopotamia in particular, humans had little to no access to the divine realm. Heaven and earth were separated by their very nature. Humans could see and be affected by elements of the lower heaven, such as stars and storms, but ordinary mortals could not go to heaven because it was the abode of the gods alone. Almost nothing is known of Bronze Age, pre-1200 BC, Canaanite views of heaven. The ancient Hittites believed that some deities lived in heaven, whilst others lived in remote places on earth, such as mountains where humans had little access. In Middle Hittite myths, heaven is the abode of the gods. As in other Near Eastern cultures, the Hebrew Bible, the universe is commonly divided into 2 realms, heaven and earth. Sometimes a third realm is added, either sea, water under the earth, or sometimes a vague land of the dead that is never described in depth. The Hebrew Bible depicts heaven as a place that is inaccessible to humans, although some prophets are occasionally granted temporary visionary access to heaven. There is almost no mention in the Hebrew Bible of heaven as a possible afterlife destination for human beings, who are instead described as resting in Sheol. The God of the Israelites is described as ruling both heaven and earth. This view is paralleled in other ancient Near Eastern cultures, which also regarded heaven and earth as vulnerable and subject to dissolution. However, the Hebrew Bible differs from other ancient Near Eastern cultures in that it portrays the God of Israel as independent of creation and unthreatened by its potential destruction. Because most of the Hebrew Bible concerns the God of Israel's relationship with his people, most of the events described in it take place on earth, not in heaven. In Christianity, descriptions of heaven in the New Testament are more fully developed than those in the Old Testament, but are still generally vague. As in the Old Testament, in the New Testament God is described as the ruler of heaven and earth, but his power over earth is challenged by Satan. Sayings of Jesus recorded in the Gospels of Mark and Luke commonly speak of the kingdom of God. Modern scholars agree that the kingdom of God was an essential part of the teachings of the historical Jesus. In spite of this, none of the Gospels ever record Jesus as having explained exactly what the phrase kingdom of God means. Because God's kingdom was believed to be superior to any human kingdom, This meant that God would necessarily drive out the Romans who ruled Judea and establish his own direct rule over the Jewish people. In the teachings of the historical Jesus, people are expected to prepare for the coming of the kingdom of God by living moral lives. The resurrected Jesus is said to have ascended to heaven, where he now sits at the right hand of God and will return to earth in the second coming. Various people have been said to have entered heaven while still alive, including Enoch, Elijah, and Jesus himself after his resurrection. According to Roman Catholic teaching, Mary, mother of Jesus, is also said to have assumed into heaven and is titled the Queen of Heaven. Whilst the concept of heaven is much discussed in Christian thought, the Jewish concept of the afterlife is not discussed so often. The Torah has little to say on the subject of survival after death, but by the time of the rabbis, two ideas had made inroads among the Jews. One, which is probably derived from Greek thought, is that of the immortal soul which returns to its creator after death. The other, which is thought to be of Persian origin, is that of the resurrection of the dead. In Islam, one interpretation of heavens is that all the stars and galaxies, including the Milky Way, are all part of the first heaven, and beyond that 6 bigger worlds are there, which have yet to be discovered by scientists. Paradise is described primarily in physical terms as a place where every wish is immediately fulfilled when asked. Islamic texts describe immortal life in Jannah as happy without negative emotions. Those who dwell in Jannah are said to wear costly apparel, partake in exquisite banquets, and recline on couches inlaid with gold or precious stones. Inhabitants will rejoice in the company of their parents, spouses, and children. In Islam, if one's good deeds outweigh their bad deeds, they may gain entrance to paradise. Conversely, if one's sins outweigh their good deeds, they are sent to hell. The more good deeds one has performed, the higher the level of Jannah one is directed to. In the native Chinese Confucian traditions, heaven is an important concept, where the ancestors reside and from which emperors drew their mandate to rule in their dynastic propaganda, for example. Heaven is a key concept in Chinese mythology, philosophies, and religions. Heaven is said to see, hear, and watch over all men. Heaven is affected by man's doings, and having personality is happy and angry with them. Heaven blesses those who please it and sends calamities upon those who offend it. Heaven was believed to transcend all other spirits and gods, with Confucius saying, "He who offends against heaven has none to whom he can pray." In Buddhism, there are several heavens, all of which are still part of the illusionary reality. Those who accumulate good karma may be reborn. However, their stay in heaven is not eternal. Eventually, they will use up their good karma and will undergo rebirth into another realm as a human, animal, or other beings. Because heaven is temporary, Buddhists focus more on escaping the cycle of rebirth and reaching enlightenment, nirvana. Nirvana is not a heaven, but a mental state. In Hinduism, attaining heaven is not the final pursuit, as heaven itself is ephemeral and related to physical body. According to Hindu cosmology, above the earthly plane are other planes. The good kingdom is the general name for heaven in Hinduism, a heavenly paradise of pleasure. In Sikh thought, heaven and hell are not places for living hereafter. They are part of spiritual topography of man, and do not exist otherwise. They refer to good and evil stages of life respectively, and can be lived now and here during our earthly existence. The Aztecs and the Toltecs believed that the heavens were constructed and separated into 13 levels. Each level had from one to many lords living in and ruling these heavens. In Polynesian mythology, there are various concepts of heaven and the underworld. These differ from one island to another. What they share is the view of the universe as an egg or coconut that is divided between the world of humans, earth, the upper world of heavenly gods, and the underworld. Each of these is subdivided in a manner reminiscent of Dante's Divine Comedy, but the number of divisions and their names differs from one Polynesian culture to another. There are many criticisms of the belief in heaven. Anarchist Emma Goldman expressed this view when she wrote, "Consciously or unconsciously, most theists see in gods and devils, heaven and hell, reward and punishment, a whip to lash the people into obedience, meekness, and contentment." Some have argued that a belief in a reward after death is poor motivation for moral behavior while alive. Sam Harris wrote, "It is rather more noble to help people purely out of concern for their suffering than it is to help them because you think the creator of the universe wants you to do it, or will reward you for doing it, or will punish you for not doing it." The problem with this linkage between religion and morality is that it gives people bad reasons to help other human beings when good reasons are available. In Inside the Neolithic Mind, 2005, Lewis, Williams and Pierce argue that many cultures around the world and through history neurally perceive a tiered structure of heaven along with similarly structured circles of hell. The reports match so similarly across time and space that Lewis, Williams and Pierce argue for a neuroscientific explanation, accepting the precepts as real neural activations and subjective precepts during particular altered states of consciousness. Many people who come close to death and have near-death experiences report meeting relatives or entering the light in an otherworldly dimension, which shares similarities with the religious concept of heaven. Even though there are also reports of distressing experiences and negative life reviews, which share some similarities with the concept of hell, the positive experience of meeting or entering the light is reported as an immensely intense feeling of a state of love, peace, and joy beyond human comprehension. Together with this intensely positive feeling state, people who have near-death experiences also report that consciousness or a heightened state of awareness seems as if it is at the heart of experiencing a taste of heaven. What are your thoughts regarding an afterlife? Please let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.